The screams were loud, even through the closed door. We ran upstairs as quickly as we could and jumped down from the stage. The screams seemed to be coming from multiple areas of the school. All I could think of was getting to Allie. I felt so stupid for leaving her. I had been so careful for so long. The last 2 months of semi-normalness and safety must have brought my guard down. Jessica ran with me down the long hallway. We saw Arvin with his wife and kids coming out of one of the rooms with their things.
Joe, Jessica, we have to get out. These tentacle things are breaking through the floors,
he shouted as he slammed the door shut.
We need to get to the main office for the bus key.
I'll get it, said Jessica. She had her handgun out and ready. You guys get safely on the bus. Arvin nodded and went with his family down the other hall to the exit towards the bus lot. The screams and shouting abruptly stopped as we were running towards my room and the main office. This return to silence was a lot more unnerving than the screams. We slowed to a fast walking pace so we could better listen for danger. At first, there was nothing, and then a couple of doors slamming in the distance. Hopefully more people made it out to the bus. We slowed down when we got closer to where I had stupidly left Allie. The sound of footsteps coming towards us made us stop in our tracks. Jessica aimed her flashlight in front of us. "Sarah," she said. My heart sank. "Where's Allie?" I shouted. Sarah didn't say anything. She just kept walking towards us. "Sarah, please stop," said Jessica. Sarah's pace quickened, and soon she was running towards us. "What happened to Allie?" I shouted as Jessica took aim and fired a shot. Sarah fell to the ground. She reached her arms out and tried to grab at us as we ran past her. The door to the room I was staying in was wide open. I peeked in to see the roots sliding across the floor and over the pads where Allie and I had slept. There was no sign of Allie. "Allie, where are you?" I half shouted, afraid to draw too much attention to us. Jessica opened the classroom doors we passed and whispered loudly for Allie. We continued down the hall after no response was received. Before the main office and the gym, another hallway branched off to the left. We walked partway down the hall and both called for Allie. "I can't leave until I find her," I said. "I'll stay with you and help you find her," said Jessica. "What if she made it out to the bus and they need help out there? You go grab the key and head to the bus. Call me on the radio if she's there. I'll stay here and look around," I said. Jessica ran back to the office. "The key's gone!" she shouted. I heard her rummaging around and knocking things over. I ran back to her and helped look for the key. There was a faint sound of something sliding or being dragged across the floor, coming from behind us. We searched all around, but it wasn't there. "Maybe someone already grabbed it," I said. "You should get to the bus." She hesitated for a moment. "Okay, I'll radio you as soon as I get there and see what's going on," she said. "Good luck." She squeezed my arm and then headed for the doors. The dragging noise continued from down the hall, and sounds of things crashing and breaking came from the gym. I still had the rifle and checked to make sure it was ready. I didn't have my backpack with the extra ammunition, so I knew I wouldn't survive long in here. I went back down the hall and checked a few more rooms without any luck. As I was turning around, I saw movement from a classroom door further down the hall. "Allie!" I yelled, and ran towards the door. I heard crying from inside the room and opened the door to see Allie's friend Clara sitting on the floor. "Is anyone with you?" I asked frantically. She shook her head no, and I grabbed her hand. "Come on, we have to go." The dragging sound was getting closer, and whatever it was had picked up the pace. Jessica's voice came through the radio in my pocket. "I'm sorry, she's not here. We don't have the key, but there are a bunch of us safe on the bus." I couldn't respond yet. Clara and I hurried down the hall, and I kept her behind me as I turned the corner with the rifle raised. "Stay back and close your eyes," I yelled to Clara. I pointed my flashlight and rifle at the figure limping towards us. He didn't turn away from the bright light shining on his face. It was Mr. Barnes. I moved the light down to his legs and could see that his right leg was mostly gone. A root or tentacle looked to have fused to his body where the leg used to be and was being dragged on the floor with each step. It trailed a few feet behind him, like a long tail. I made sure Clara was behind me and that her head was turned away. "Cover your ears and keep your eyes closed," I said. I aimed carefully and pulled the trigger. Mr. Barnes crumbled to the ground. I took Clara and went back over to the office. The loud noises continued from the gym, and I thought I heard a noise coming from the closed door behind the office. With Clara behind me, I had the rifle ready and slowly pushed open the door. Sitting on the floor with her head buried in her arms was Allie, softly crying. The bus key was on the floor in front of her, and our backpacks were next to her. She looked up to me and shouted, "Dad!" before running over and hugging me. I dropped the rifle, picked her up, and held her as tightly as I could, tears streaming down my face. "I didn't want them to leave without you, Dad," she said. "I didn't know what to do, so I took the key and hid." I set her down and grabbed the key and the backpacks. "You did a good thing hiding," I said. "Let's go meet the others on the bus." I grabbed the walkie-talkie and held down the button. "I found Allie and we have the key. We'll be there in a moment." Allie and Clara held hands and stayed behind me as we walked back out. The dragging noise started again from down the hall. I pointed my flashlight in the direction of it and saw the root slithering towards us along the floor. Mr. Barnes's body was being dragged behind it. We ran for the doors and out into the dark and cold night. The wind blew snow into the air and immediately chilled us to the bone. I was able to see enough with the moonlight, so I kept the flashlight off. We stayed closely together and walked around the outside of the gym. When we turned the corner, I could see the ground was broken away and the wall was crumbling down. I turned on the flashlight to get a better view of the ground around it. There were footprints in the snow that went way past the hole. We followed more closely, and I stayed in front in case the ground was to break away any more. When we finally made it to the other side of the school, the bus parking lot came into view. Unfortunately, so did some glowing eyes off in the distance. "Run!" I shouted as I grabbed onto Allie and Clara and pushed them forward. "Go as fast as you can and head straight for the bus." The animals howled as the shapes behind the eyes began to move quickly towards us. They were farther away from us than the bus, but they were much faster. "Jessica! Arvin! Help!" I yelled, as I was sure the animals would get to us before we made it to safety. I stayed behind the girls so I could protect them, and when we were halfway there, I stopped. I knelt down and got the rifle ready. I could see at least 6 animals. I fired a shot. It missed. The noise at least made the animals start coming towards me instead of the girls. Allie stopped and shouted, "Dad, come on!" "Get on the bus!" I yelled back. "Hurry!" Clara took her hand again and pulled her with her towards the parking lot. Jessica and some others were coming off the bus, while I took another shot. This time, I made contact. I got up and started running again towards the parking lot, with the animals about 50 feet away. Mrs. G ran over to the girls and helped them back on the bus. Jessica and Mrs. Barnes began shooting. I began running and could hear them getting closer and closer. Then, a few more shots went off in rapid succession, and I was finally in the parking lot and almost to the bus. There was a loud noise behind me, and I turned around just in time to see the gym finish collapsing. Then, I hurried onto the bus with Jessica and Mrs. Barnes before anything else came after us. It was dark in there, and I could see people huddled together and crying in different parts of the bus. I quickly found Allie and Clara and sat with them in one of the seats. No one said anything for a while, and I thought about how I found both Clara and Allie hiding alone in the school. There might be other survivors still in there, and some of them could be scared little kids. I knew we couldn't leave without going back in there. I motioned for Jessica to come over. "We need to go back inside," I whispered. "There could be more kids in there." Jessica looked around the bus, and I'm sure she noticed the same thing I did, that fewer than half of us had made it out. "I'll go talk to the others and we'll come up with a plan," she said. Allie and Clara were hugging each other tight and crying. I had no words to share that could make anything better for them, so I remained silent. After a few minutes, Jessica came back. "I've got a couple of volunteers to go with me," she said. "Arvin will stay here since he can drive the bus away if things go wrong." I thought again about Clara and Allie, and how, if I hadn't have found them, they likely wouldn't have survived. "I'm going with you," I said. Allie was safe for the time being on the bus, and I couldn't live with myself if there were other kids in there that could still be saved. We assigned adults and some of the older kids to be on lookout around the bus. I gave Arvin the key and instructed him to leave if there was any immediate danger. Allie begged me not to go in, but I assured her that I could be cautious and safe with Jessica and the others. We had our walkie-talkies and could communicate and meet up if they had to go before we made it back. She gave me the biggest hug ever, and then I went over to Jessica to wait for the other two to say their goodbyes and join us